Hello everybody, this is Old Soldier, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the various different foods for survival, emergency, and sporting use. Let's do it. First up, MREs. Sad to say, from my time in the Army, I ate far too many of these. Here are the pros of them. They're calorie dense, they're shelf stable, 5 years, and in some cases, in many cases, considerably more. They pack flat, and in cold weather, it has to get extremely, extremely cold for them to freeze. Some of the cons: bland, full of preservatives. If you are in a survival situation, the preservatives question in my mind takes a back seat. They are getting more expensive. Probably one of the worst cons are if you've been in the military and had to eat these for long periods of time, there is a stigma or a flashback associated with eating these. But that said, they'll keep you alive. There was an Army study done in the early 90s that said after 60 days of consuming nothing but solely MREs, your health will deteriorate considerably. Next up, freeze-dried food. I've also eaten a lot of these, although there's no way I've eaten as many as MREs. Hey, these things are great for hiking and hunting. The pros are they have a long shelf life, in some cases up to 30 years, and they're lightweight. The cons, they're expensive, and in some cases, they're high in sodium. If you have dietary concerns, you might want to watch this. Also, they require a lot of water. And I've had to watch people who say, hey, you don't need a lot of water, and they eat them. Well, if you don't reconstitute them in water and you just eat them dry, guess what? They'll dehydrate you. Freeze-dried food constitutes a large portion of the emergency and survival food market. Canned food, often neglected in reference to storage or emergency food. The pluses for this are that it is readily available and relatively inexpensive. The two major cons are that it is heavy and the shelf life is not as long as, say, freeze-dried food. Let's address the shelf life first. The shelf life on this is, while it's not as long, certainly, as freeze-dried food, canned food is often able to be eaten. It is edible long after the best-by date. That said, my recommendation for canned food for in your pantry is, if you don't eat it, don't store it. In other words, store the foods that you eat and rotate them through your pantry. I have to point out that one food that has an especially long shelf life and has been featured on this channel before is, you guessed it, your favorite and mine, Spam. Next up, bulk dry food. Pictured here are 5 pounds of white rice and 3 pounds of pinto beans stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers. This, by far, is the best way to store large amount of foods cheaply. Dry foods stored in this manner can be stable and edible for decades. For further information on how to do this, you can check the archives on my channel on how to store dry foods. The pluses of this are that you can store large amounts of food cheaply. The negative of this technique and this category of food is that the food can be bland. Some of the food, such as beans, can take a long time to prepare. I don't look at this as an option for food in the field, although you can certainly take some of these dry foods to the woods with you. However, I look at this as more of a way to store large amounts of food in the home. Once again, you can use these, although they do have long shelf life. Do not store what you don't eat and rotate them into your household consumption. And the last category that I'm going to talk about is home preserved, either home canned or home dehydrated goods. I've made jerky, although none is pictured here, but here are some fruits that I have canned, and here are some apple chips that I have dehydrated and shrink wrapped with a food saver bag. The pros of this is that, other than time, it is one of the cheapest methods of preserving food for you. The food preserved in shrink wrap bags, whether it's dried fruit or jerky, is suitable to taking into the woods and the field with you for hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, whatever. The canned vegetables, and you can can meat, although I don't have any pictured here, I have done it before, are not suitable for it. One of the cons of this is if you can in cans, if you can in glass jars, it's subject to breaking. That said, this is an economical way of storing food, and it does derive you a certain sense of satisfaction. For more information on this, check my episodes. I don't have one on home canning, but I do have one on making apple chips at home. Also, if you do can at home, please be sure, botulism is a thing. Please use references such as the Ball Canning Guide, and another one that my wife and I both like is Putting Food By. Those are my takes on the various types of food for storage emergency use. This is Old Soldier out.